Welcome to the University of Florida Department of Sport Management, Voices from the Field, Season 1, Session 4, featuring Joe Raulerson. Today, Joe will be providing insight into his professional background. Shelley Lyle, the Department of Sport Management Career Engagement and Outreach Coordinator, will be interviewing him. We really appreciate your time today, Joe, on the call, and thank you for being on the webinar, everyone that is attending. Shelley, take it away.
Yes, thanks again for being here, Joe. We really appreciate your time and input for our students. So I'm going to give a little background on you before you start, and feel free to fill in the gaps as if I miss anything. So Joe Raulerson is majority of his work has been with the Gainesville Police Department. So he worked for them for 21 years. He was an officer, a corporal, a sergeant, and a lieutenant. Before he moved on to work for the University Athletic Association, he is currently the guest service coordinator for the UAA. So Joe, with that being said, how did you get your start in sports? Obviously you had a lot of years before in a different career. And what was the path that led you to where you are today?
Well, it's interesting, and, it takes a lot of team members to actually put on an event. So my first game working was around 1998. I started working football games, starting in the neighborhood detail, working for the Gainesville Police Department, and then eventually deciding, yes, I can actually go inside the stadium and see, how working an event is. So I worked at the gates, and then landed on the field a lot after working, transitioning to the traffic unit, where, working on the motorcycles, helping get the team in and out on Friday and Saturdays, which was a really cool experience. And then the last 3 years or a couple years when I was a lieutenant there, I was the number 2 in charge of the police department security from the city side. And then the last year I was actually in the security booth with all the other public safety agencies. So then after that, seeing how that part was, it was, I retired in 2017, basically, just wanting a different scenery, something new, something different. I was actually went back to get my degree. So I was fortunate enough to, attend the University of Florida again, because I went a long time ago and then came back. So then after retiring, I was an intern in the operations department here in 2018, and then started guest services in August 2018. So that was my start.
Gotcha. And what made you choose sports as your second career?
As I said, it was kind of a change of scenery. So you go, when you're working in public safety, you want to help people. You want to help everyone that you can, but not all of that is the glamorous side of everything. So sometimes you just see the worst there is of situations. So it's like, what can I do to pretty much go into a career that's almost always happy. So, if you look at the sport and or entertainment world, there is that happiness feature no matter where you're at. So, sports is it. And working at the University of Florida is an absolute dream, because, not only do you work for your school, but you get to be around some really, really, good people. So, I mean, it's just a complete, not too much of a complete change of scenery, because odd enough, a lot of the things I did at the police department, not all of them, but some of the things I did at the police department actually transferred over, like hiring staff. I mean, that was something I was a part of at the police department, where now I hire OPS or part-time staff to assist with game days and events. So, I mean, it's all the same interviewing techniques, talking with people, and sometimes even responding to complaints. I mean, it's as a police officer, it's a grander scale, and there's a lot more entailed, but you get to learn how to talk with people and find out what their issues are, and basically how to resolve issues. So when we look at, issues or complaints, how can we resolve those quickly? That's the fun. That's actually the fun part. So, I mean, it's all fun so far.
That's awesome. And would you have ever thought you would be working in sports industry? Like if you're 25 years ago, if you told yourself, guess what, you're going to actually working for University of Florida Athletic Association, what would you have said?
No, I would have never thought that. To be honest, never thought. And it wasn't, and later I'll get into, what advice you'll give for students. It's like, make a plan. Well, going in, I had a plan. So, going into public safety, I had a plan of everything I wanted to do. And I did that. And it's like, well, that was great. My planning was a little off because I checked all those boxes, and it's like, now what? So early on in my career, if you would have told me, hey, one day you're going to be in sport and or be, fortunate enough to work at the University of Florida, with the Athletic Association, I'd said, yeah, sure. Because at the time, you look and, the Jeremy Foley's and all that group was, just rolling. And really that's when, head ball coach was, hitting his stride, the national championships, basketball was taking off. I mean, so all those things right in that period were taking off, and it was going like, yeah, I don't think so. Cause, then and now, the University of Florida and the Athletic Association is at the top of their game. So, I mean, it's a blessing to be here, I can assure you.
That's awesome. Well, going into your day in and day out in your job, what does that look like? What's a day in the life of Joe Raulerson today?
Well, I get to, manage the guest services program, which, I get to hire, train, and staff guest services for at least 9 of the sports that we have at the University of Florida. I get to assist with home events. So, answer fan questions, assist with gates. I'm also on the Fan Advisory Council. I kind of co-coordinate that with another member here. Manage the recognition program that we do on game days. I get to work with a lot of departments too. So I get to work with, I'm under operations. So I work with operations on a day-to-day basis, but I also work on a day-to-day basis with marketing, tickets, Gator Boosters, Gator Hospitality. And then it expands from there because, you get into our marketing partners with Gator Sports Properties, and you just keep going in a lot of different directions where I'm sitting. But luckily where I work, it's a giant family, and it's not just all me that does everything. Thank goodness. It's there's so many that help and assist everyone on a day-to-day basis. It just makes the day go easier and all the tasks easier because everyone is so heavily involved with making every event as run as smoothly and as effectively as possible.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like you have a team environment outside of the teams individually. It is definitely a team mentality there.
Yeah.
That's great. And then what do you kind of do big picture? Like when you're looking at maybe budget planning for the year or things that you're involved with on a yearly or multi-year schedule, what's your role in that?
Well, it's planning for events in advance. So, now we're dealing with, fall term events, which, albeit a shortened season, you're already looking to spring and what might that entail with guest services, the usher program that we have that's under guest services at softball, baseball, what changing some things around. I get to work with our super crew with marketing that does floridagators.com, the website, changing some of the fan day guides on that. It's just a lot of different things that has basically tentacles that run everywhere that you just get involved with.
Gotcha. And do you specifically work with football, or do you work with kind of all the sports and you do different roles with each one?
It's very similar roles in all the sports. So, you first off, like before the season starts, before the, we'll say football season for now. Before the football season starts, operations, Brian Flood will have a meeting, and everyone will start getting together, and they will lay the foundation for the season. So your event managers start that conversation. And within the conversations, you're going to have everyone at the table. So you'll have, the guest services piece, you'll have ticketing part, operations, marketing part, a booster part. If there is a hospitality part, say in football, basketball, and coming up probably in baseball, they would be also at the table. Then you have your administrators for the sport that might be there. And then some sport, actually, you will have the coaching staff and their staff attend the meeting as well. So that means, everyone's at the table, everyone's helping coordinate that season and what that roadmap or that basically what the road looks like to get there. What is a successful season going to look like? What are the expectations of the administration? What are the expectations of the coaching staff? What are they looking for? Because, again, that's why I really like working here at Florida Athletics, is because the coaching staff is so involved in a lot of aspects. It's just not X's and O's and, it's a lot about the student athlete, but it also goes into the fan experience. What are they looking at? What does game day look like? Or what does their event look like from a fan's point of view? And how do we get better? How do we manage that better? So it's always pushing that envelope, trying to get better, and never resting, saying, we've peaked. I've never heard that ever, saying, hey, we peaked, we can't do anything else. It's always, whether it's event staff or marketing, everybody just keeps pushing and pushing, what next, what can we do? And that really, it starts from the leadership down. I mean, if you don't have a tight leadership group that pushes everyone in that direction or has that expectation that we're looking for a 100% every single time, not from just our athletes, but you're looking at 100% from the entire event staff. And that's from before the gates open to when the gates open, and everyone is here until afterwards. And we're just really fortunate that we get to build that from really the start of the season on through the season until the end of the season. And you're recapping after that, saying, what did we do right? What can we do better to make the next season even stronger than the one before?
So it sounds like you're also a liaison between kind of the marketing and then the coaches and the operations and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah, that is right. And luckily for me, I never stopped going to meetings from, transferring from the City of Gainesville to the Athletics Association. I get to go to still meetings, which is, very informative as someone coming in to a new career. You get to learn a lot about the different groups that are involved in the, just one sport, putting it together. And again, we start, the meetings start with, our interns and our assistants get to come into those meetings and start learning immediately. So, I mean, it never stops with, our students that come in, get to learn at that, and then hopefully get to stay and be with us in a longer period of time and continue to work in athletics.
Gotcha. And what would you say is the most rewarding experience so far in your career?
Well, I've said it before, but it's being around very bright, hardworking people around the Athletic Association. Really, I mean, I can't stress that enough, how nice it is to see that. I mean, I've always been around, not to say that I haven't been around, bright, hardworking people, but, it's different staff. It's a different mentality. So, I mean, everyone here pushes themselves literally so hard, and they don't need any outside pressure. I mean, they put so much pressure on themselves to better themselves and to better every event from one event to the other. How can we do it better? And they critique themselves on every event. Secondly, it's, for me, it was getting to know the faculty at, HHP Sports Management. And Brian can, Dr. Avery can attest to that. I did not know him at all. I never was a student of Dr. Avery at all. But I saw a publication that he wrote. I read it and I said, and then when I looked, I went, wow, he's a professor here. That's really cool. So I reached out to him and, I started having a conversation with him, but it's reaching out to the professors that I've had, talking with them, seeing them at events, asking questions from them, so it's getting to know them and really working with some of the brightest students, I think, in the country at the University of Florida. So I get to, while interviewing them, I get to have a conversation and just talk with them, find out their backgrounds, their directions, and really, we're very fortunate at the University of Florida. We have such bright students, and I think that's a reflection of, obviously it's a reflection of our university and our values here. But those are 3 short rewards that so far in my career that I just sometimes am amazed that, not only do I get to work with an amazing group at the Athletic Association, but, I can walk across on a normal year, I could walk across the street or pick up the phone or, email and say, hey, you want to grab lunch, or, kind of meet you in your office and talk with, our faculty, or, I have students dropping in a normal year all the time, just not knocking on the door because it's always open, but just dropping in and say hello. So, I mean, that's been really cool.
That's awesome. And how many, what's the number of grads from HHP that currently work with you guys in the UA operations?
Oh, goodness. I don't think I know that number off the top of my head. It's almost everyone down our hallway, I believe. There's a few exceptions besides that, but I mean, there are a lot. I mean, it really is. Obviously, it's fairly easy. I say it's fairly easy, but you have a pool of students literally on our campus that are extremely bright. They all want experience, and they usually get experience with athletics, so they're known. And to me, that's what I tell the students that I work with, that make sure you go up and down the hallways and you meet everyone at the University Athletic Association. I said, reach out to a Jeremy Foley, reach out to, a Chip, reach out to Mike Spiegler, Linda Teeler. I mean, reach out to all these people, and find out where they came from, how they get there, and just literally ask them as many questions as you can, when possible. And I still say that now, even with the world we live in right now, where it's all Zoom calls and, emails and text, that still reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out and contact someone that you don't know and find out, how they get their start and what are their recommendations now. I mean, that's never a bad thing to continue to network and get to know people.
Well, we really appreciate that on our side as well, as I'm talking with students, and you guys, a lot of your staff has been unbelievable in helping our students, just being, almost like mini career coaches themselves, and helping guide them on what they're interested in and clarifying maybe just the logistics and the ins and outs of working at a university. So we really appreciate it. And I know for a lot of our students, that's super encouraging to hear that you guys are open and looking, and always, an ear, but also an opportunity, and I think that's really awesome. So it's cool that despite the University Athletic Association being a different entity than the University of Florida, they really are such partners, and that really speaks volumes.
And as I tell students, it doesn't seem that way, but you have a very short time while on campus. So, I mean, you have to utilize that time extremely, as I say, you have to plan going in, and you have to start meeting people as fast as you can to really leverage yourself while you're on campus. I mean, get to know the professors, even if you might not ever be in their class, get to know them, get to know their backgrounds, and literally for us, it's getting experience in as many places as possible in the short amount of time that you're here. So then you have, that broad range, or, that background that you can fall back on and say, I got this amount of experience while at the University of Florida. Not only did I get a top 6 education, but, I got a championship experience while working with Florida athletics, which, that's what it's about, is getting the students as much experience as possible while they're here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, interning, volunteering, is all really helpful for them, especially just gaining knowledge and, putting something on their resume too. I think you guys have been amazing at giving those students opportunities. Before I go into a few more details on how to help students, kind of how to navigate the sports industry in the college world, can you clarify? I know we have some students interested in team operations, but I think from a pro level to a college level, there's some differences there. So can you kind of clarify when it comes to the operations side? You work alongside, operations, but for the UAA, team operations with the team can be a program coordinator or an operations person, but then there's other operations that is more of the facilities of the game day and things like that. So can you kind of give a little clarity, because I think that will help the students understand what role you do and what the operations look like for the UAA.
Yeah, the operations side on the Athletic Association, I consider them the event managers, basically. So they're coordinating the event from A to Z. And they're not only concentrating on the home team side, but they're also, the liaison for the visiting team as well. So, they might have guidelines, or they do have guidelines on, how the visiting team, what time they're going to arrive, who their contact is, what locker room they're going to use, what they might need during that time or that stay here. And then, it's running the event. So for really, it's what time do gates open? What does that look like? Is it a ticketed event? Is it a non-ticketed event? These days, what does the social or physical distant model look like in whatever venue you have? Mask compliance, proper signage within the stadiums or the events. There's just a lot of that. And that's the operations or event side that I share the hallway with. And then the specific sports have their own operations groups as well. So they'll deal with more of the team and how their team or their sport, I guess, how that operates within that smaller setting. So it's little subgroups out of the larger group. I mean, to me, it's, you have your event manager that oversees or looks after, that big picture overview. And then you start getting into the smaller details, and it just basically breaks up assignments. So, I would have the guest services, say in football, I would have the guest services side. Will Kraus might be dealing with gate security, gate staff, custodial issues. And then we have a facility side where, Bill Smith might be dealing with the big picture of the facility and how that operates. Are there any maintenance issues? And then, everyone in the operations group has a task on game day. Every single person in the operations group has a task on football game days. And same thing with marketing tickets. I mean, everyone has a task on game days, and that's how it's broken down. So you have your big giant picture of it with, Brian Flood making sure the entire event runs smoothly. And then it breaks down from there. Because once you get your task, no one has time to check up on you. So you better know what your task really is, and you better do it at 100%, because you wouldn't want one of your bosses come and remind you of what your duties are. So
yeah, who's in charge of this? And you're like, whoa, that was me.
yeah, geez, that would be me, wouldn't it? That would be bad. So but again, and I say that, but with the family atmosphere you have here, and I tell the students this too, I said, you're going to get a lot of people, a lot of staff from the UAA walking behind you and say, hey, how is everything? Is everything going okay? Do you need anything? My boss is fantastic about doing that. And we have right around 50 to 56 staff members of guest services on a football game day, can go up to around 60. And, she goes around and will talk with a lot of them and say, how are you doing? How's everything? And it's not just everyone on our staff does that. So I say that you're on an island, kind of like on an island, and you better know your stuff, but you never feel that way just because of the team family atmosphere, that everyone's here to encourage each other, one another, and they want each other to excel as well. So that's a positive.
Yeah, that's great. And so here's the loaded question. How has your role changed or been impacted by the pandemic?
Well, all of our roles have, I wouldn't say changed as much as just slight adjustments or some ads. I don't think that we thought we would be doing, a year ago, we wouldn't have thought we would be doing PA reads, on how to physical distance while entering the stadium. So, ordering hand sanitizing stations throughout Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, working with maintenance on the locations of those hand sanitizing stations where they're located, and obviously coordinating that with, the event manager here, or the operations side, and then the marketing side, when you start talking about signage, ordering of all the signage, which is different this year, queuing lines, queuing signage. There's a lot that's been, I would say, added, but once the first event, I think for us, we had our first soccer event was our first one. We used physical distancing model, and the whole, most of the group was out there marking seats on where our fans or guests were going to sit for that first match, and where our signage was going to be located. And again, we were just, we were excited to come in and play any kind of ball. So, we're happy for our student athletes, and happy for our fans that they get to see any Gator sport again. So this year.
Yes, I'm sure everyone is, any chance they get, right? The student athletes, the fans, all of that seems to be, we all still deeply desire to see sports go on, even in the pandemic. So how did your organization, how did the UAA answer the call to confront racial inequality our country is currently faced with? I think some people, I'm sure a lot of students have seen some of the things that the football team has done, and maybe the soccer program, but just if you could speak a little bit to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, well, we went in and we started our Listen, Learn, Act, and I'll say initiative for lack of a better term for Joe, but our group got together, the Athletic Association got together and said, what are our values? What do we want to do moving forward? So, in the Listen, Learn, and Act, we wanted to listen to some of the, uncomfortable conversations that weren't being talked about, maybe, that it's easy to sometimes not talk about things. And I wouldn't say, I don't want to say ignore, but, and this is just Joe. I don't want to say ignore, but sometimes it's just easier if you're uncomfortable about a situation that, it's better just, I guess, to leave it alone or not talk about it. So our first thing was just to listen, let's listen to each other. Let's listen to our athletes, to our students. And that's what we did. And we're still taking the time to listen. That's really important. And I think it's really important for our community, our country, is just to take the time to listen. Don't get defensive. Don't let, whatever's happened in your past get in the way or distract. Just listen to what someone's point of view. Where are they coming from? Because really, others' point of views, we all have point of views that could be different. And in an educational setting, it's, let's listen to our differences. And why do we, why are we, why do we have, why do you think that way? And just continue that communication. And, and then we go into the learning part. Let's learn more about the history, the policies that really people, I would say, we struggle with, really, because we all struggle with that. And then when you listen and start learning about some of the historical causes, you go like, well, I understand. Okay, I get that. I've never, because for me, it's going like I've never thought of that before. I was in public safety for 21 years, or a little over 21 years, and I was lucky to be a part of a lot of classes, a lot of diversity classes, listening to implicit bias. I've been through implicit bias training, so you've always got to remember, okay, where did I come from? Where did Joe come from, and how is that perceived? And then is my perception on things different than everyone else's? And again, it goes back to the learning part. Where I come from is different from where, well, anyone else on this Zoom call, because I'm not related to anyone on this call. So so those are the two. And then we get in the act, once we educate ourselves to have those open conversations with coworkers. So I mean, again, it's kind of sometimes could put you in an uncomfortable position, but then, or something you might not be used to, but you just get to ask the questions on, hey, has this ever affected you? Or have I ever said something that's affected? And and you might not think that saying a comment or your background, maybe it's misunderstood, and then you go like, well, I could have said it completely wrong too, and I was not the smartest, and not the smartest when I said something. So it again is having open conversations, and just learning from each other and moving forward. Again, a really cool part of being part of an organization that strives to do better. Again, strives to do better on every part that we do. So again, it really works from the top down and the bottom up. I mean, we're all the same, and we're all trying to be better. And I said, never let civility down. So, trying to be more civil to each other, trying to be more understanding of each other. So, I think giving our athletes the space to be heard, just like any other student on campus that's afforded those opportunities. Just because they're athletes, they're also students, they're also humans. So I mean, they're no different. So I mean, just allowing them to have the space to talk and for us to listen.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like, you exist in a team environment. So that provides to me immediately, as you were speaking, a safe environment where those conversations can be had and those discussions can exist in a way that people are open to talk. And because it's one thing to go through a training and another thing to have conversations and engage in the hard, uncomfortable topics. And it's a very humble approach, right? Because you're saying, hey, maybe I didn't do this right, or maybe I don't understand. Can you, have I hurt your feelings? Have I said something wrong? And I think that that's a really cool way to help an organization grow, and individually and then collectively, as well as, you guys are leaders for those student athletes. So the trickle down, I'm sure, is as real too. So that's really cool. And so just giving a little more in the direction of, for the students, advice for those who are trying to do what you do. How would they stand out as an applicant? Maybe what are you looking for even when you're hiring OPS staff and interns and things like that?
Well, I've said it a few times, you plan where you'd like to be, whether it's event management, high school, collegiate, professional, plan on the direction you'd like to go, but then also plan on being really, really flexible in that also. So again, like I said before, your time is really, really short on campus. So utilize that time really wisely. Meet your professors, reach out. When I say, now I'll just say work with us, but not only guest services, there's a plug, but work with marketing, blue shirts, work with the O'Connell Center staff, reach out to our Gator ticket staff. We have student staffers usually that work with them, Gator hospitality. We have a lot of opportunities within the Athletic Association on a normal year, on any given year, where those opportunities are available to students. And, we don't stop there. Our individual sports also have opportunities as well. So if you want to be, on the equipment side as an equipment manager or, a student manager, each individual sport has opportunities as well. And they have staff, they have program coordinators. Most of our sport have program coordinators there. Normally volunteers are, don't run away from being a volunteer and putting in your time while you're here at the University of Florida. There's administrative spots there. Sport is very, very broad. I mean, you can, and then there are many, many opportunities. You just have to look for them. So, concessions, retail, there are a lot of spots that you can start in sport that are there. You just have to try to find those. And again, meet the Athletic Association staff. I mean, they're here. I mean, best and the brightest right here. I say across the street, but we're really not across the street. It's across the parking lot. Walk, don't be afraid to email someone at the Athletic Association and say, do you have a minute? It doesn't hurt. I mean, I'm quite certain they will find the time to speak with a student via phone or email right now, and if not face to face, and give them really their background and how they got to where they were. Again, we're here to help the students and to increase the student experience. So that's how we can do that.
That's awesome. And how would you, with everything with the pandemic and the changes that are going on, can you speak to maybe new internship opportunities or things that could be opening up in the spring? I know students are, they're feeling it as well as everyone else, just the unknownness of sports. So do you have any words to share about that?
Yeah, we're still taking interns. So the internships for us, spring's probably a little tight now because I think the spring deadline probably is very soon, if not already somewhere right around this time frame anyway. But don't be afraid to reach out about a summer internship, other departments on what they're doing for interns. Because I think one thing the pandemic has taught us is that you don't always have to have a face-to-face meeting. We found out how to really video conference, and it's really, really efficient to do that. So, we've all had to learn to do things just a little different. So, instead of having a student sitting in the office while we talk about, their goals and their future and, a standard interview, now we're doing it on Zoom, which is really, it's more efficient for the student because they can be, in their apartment or dorm room or somewhere on campus studying allegedly, and then, doing and chatting with us. So, I mean, it's little things like that have changed, but it's not that bad of a thing because now we're doing more Zoom conferences. So reach out. Internships are there. We'll be hiring. Our spring sports schedule is going to be really packed for what we see because we have a couple sports that normally play in the fall that'll be in the spring also. So opportunities for students are there. Like I said before, not only with guest services, but hopefully, with marketing, blue shirts, maybe with the Gator student ticket office, the O'Connell Center staff, Gator hospitality, and we all work hand in hand. And some of some of the students I've worked with in the past have done multiple, have worked with multiple groups within the athletic association at the same time. And again, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's great. That's super helpful, reminding them to be flexible as well, and getting experience. We've had a lot of people, even on this Voices in the Field, say volunteer is still important. You know, even if you can't get a job or internship right away, make sure you're out there volunteering. And so, you know, we have students kind of all over the country with our online program, our master's program. So as far as sports go, would you encourage them, for instance, the UAA, your name and your email is located on the website, pretty easily accessible. And so for other universities, if they're in other locations, would you encourage them to send an email, reach out, see what those universities might have available, or just make those connections? Is that something you found that you'll reply to when you get one of those emails, or you'll be interested in seeking help with?
Absolutely, we reply to them. And not only are they might not be directly sent to me, but they could be sent to, say, an administrator, and they could say, this student was in my class. They reached out and we're looking for experience opportunities. Can you connect? And absolutely, you can connect. And I would really, if I was anywhere, if it doesn't matter, make connections. It's up to you to build your network, and you're not going to build your network not reaching out. Very few people will knock on your door really and offer you an internship or a volunteer experience. So it's up to you to go out there and do it yourself. So reach out to those. And again, if you want to do the collegiate model, reach out to the colleges or institutions near you. If it's a professional sport that you want to, if you want to get into, start reaching out now. And if you find someone, you know, and or an organization you really want to work for, you know, this is the organization I'm passionate about. This is the group I want to work for. Find someone to reach out and start talking to them and having discussions with them now. Again, a lot of opportunities out there. They're there. You just have to take the time and reach out and do it.
That's awesome. Well, Joe, we're so thankful for your time. I don't have any more questions, so unless Brian or Gabby do, that's all.
I'd actually love to say something. Sorry, Shelly. Thank you.
No, it's okay.
So I can attest to Joe being a great person to kind of know. As a former employee, I would just go into his office and we'd just talk for a few minutes, and any ideas or concerns I had, he was a really great person to know and ask questions for. So I'm really grateful for him as a connection and for you to be on this show with us today, Joe. So thank you so much. I also have a question for you. You were talking about how, you know, events and operations work together with everybody on the staff as well. What would you say the largest area you're not in that you grew from, that you have learned the most? Is it marketing, ticketing? Where do you think you've learned the most since joining the operations side?
For one, there's a lot to learn starting a new career. I really, odd enough, it's the small things. Like I've had to learn a lot of Adobe programs that I wasn't familiar with, which probably falls more on the marketing side, or but really knowing Adobe Illustrator and InDesign and things like that was never in my background. But it's the little things that you don't think you will have to do going like, oh, I get to change a map. Cool. How do I change a map? And at first you rely on others to start changing those maps for you, but then you're going like, okay, I need to learn this program myself. So what can I do? And that's probably the most challenging thing I've had also. That's a great question. Learning a couple of new programs on the fly.
Well, the maps look great. I've seen them myself, so I can attest to that. You've done a great job.
It was a good foundation to start with. All I do is change colors on parking lots, so it's not that I don't want to say it's that complicated. So
don't sell yourself short. I'm sure you've done a lot. But yeah, those are the only questions I have. Thank you so much again, Joe.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Joe, I do have one question for you. And we've mentioned volunteering a few times, and then obviously internships and whatnot. So I'm a huge proponent of ensuring that interns and or volunteers are equally trained with respect to the policies and procedures of an organization, because you're the front line of the organization. And when a guest contact concern occurs, that's who you see first. That's who you go to first, type of thing. So how do you train them? I mean, with respect to the policy procedures, do you train them, I guess, is a good question, in order so they're familiar, not just with respect to how to handle a guest service situation, but an emergency response or something and everything in between, if you get where I'm coming from.
I do. And really good question. To me, volunteers are no different than paid staff. They're all the same, and they're all trained the same. Because again, when you're that, for us, we could have say on a normal season, you could have over 3,000 event workers working a football game, for instance. So you have several thousand staff members here. Well, someone that could be a student staff or say guest services could be the first face someone sees that's actually an athletic association employee. So really, those are the students, not all students, but say guest services, they have to be on their game. They have to know a lot of information. And if they don't know the information, they need to know where to go get the information. Because again, they're resolving issues. They could be resolving issues rather quickly when they're faced with them. But again, whether it's evacuation procedures, emergency procedures, what do I do in case of this? It's building blocks. So if they move into that event management role, they already know that, well, when I go in that direction, I'll need to know this because I might have to be creating these. I might have to go out and get a third party to help me with an evacuation plan or an emergency operations plan. So those, for us, it starts with the interview. You have to be, again, you have to be open. We've already taken care of the one part because, with a top institution in the country, you've got the best and the brightest students already, and they didn't get here by not learning. So you already know they can learn. So it's giving them the tools that they can use on game day to solve issues quickly and the correct way that we'd like them to. I hope that answers your question.
No, you did a good job. And all I wanted to hear is that they were treated the same as salaried employees. I was like, that's the answer, right? No, so great response there, Joe. I really appreciate your time. I don't know if Shelly or Gabby has additional questions for you at this point. But
I
if
actually
not,
do have one really quick
you got
one.
one.
Sorry.
Okay.
Keep bouncing back and forth. Okay, so what, when you're looking on a resume, what are some qualities you're looking for in a student as you're hiring them, or interns and things like that? And then maybe after you've hired them, like character qualities as you're working alongside them, what are you really looking for there?
Well, you have to be really open, because for one, you could have a student that's never had a job before. So, I mean, you have that aspect. But if you have a student that has had a job, for me, I'm looking at what have they done in the customer service industry? And that's, again, that's really, really broad. You could be, a server. You could work at a retail outlet. You could work at a grocery store. Those are opportunities to work on customer service skills. So it's, for me, I like to see that if possible, but I also have to understand, or I do understand that this could be a student's first opportunity at a job also. So again, it's okay, if it is their first job, you can't be too picky on the interview. You can't be too picky. So that's why I just like and Gabby knows this, I like to just start a conversation. I want to see a student come in here and really have a conversation with me. How are they going to communicate? Can they communicate? Because really in the customer service guest services field, that's what you want, is someone that's not afraid to have a conversation. So again, I'm going to say, a few words, and then I want them to start talking. And then I might ask them a few questions, what are your goals? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Some of the easier, really open-ended questions, so they can start running with them. And I really want them, if possible, to talk more than me. And then that's kind of what I'm looking for. And then once they're hired on, I want to see them continue to not be afraid to say hello to someone as they walk through a gate or a turnstile, at one of our events. Or if they look down at their ticket, to me, that's that opportunity to jump in, because if they're looking down, do you need any assistance? Getting to your seat? How may I help you? Again, it's looking for small opportunities. And for me, it's, again, pushing those students to have conversations and sometimes get out of their shells, if you will, to continue to meet people. Because the people that come in our sporting events also, some of them own businesses as well. So, I mean, again, you never know who you might meet coming to a Gator event.
So true. So true. Well, thank you so much that's my last question. Brian, do you have anything else?
No, I don't. It seems like a theme emerged based on some of the responses you had, that listening is a core component to the success of the UAA. And I think that's so important in a lot of fronts, especially in a guest service role. From an event perspective, hiring individuals and/or the social justice considerations that we're facing these days. So I'm glad that's the conversation that was had and the theme that did emerge. So thank you, Joe, for that. The one takeaway I'm going to talk, kind of wrap up, is time is short on campus. I think that is fundamental, and that students need to really understand, take advantage of every opportunity, because it is going to blow by. The quicker you do, I'm having student conversations with sophomores at this point, and I'm applauding their efforts as a result, because they're jumping in the deep end of the pool right out the gate, and it's going to make a huge difference because I know who they are. We're now introducing them to quite a few people as a result, and they're gaining valuable network and relationship building opportunities, and they will be successful ultimately on campus and beyond. So I think those two messages are clear with respect to success, and very important for students to retain that and make sure that they are following in a path to achieve success in this role here as a student in the UAA, and, like I said, beyond. So thank you, Joe. It was a real honor to have you on the call and to hear your insights. And we look forward to continuing these conversations with you in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for reaching out. Anything I can do to, again, help our students while they're here, just please reach out. Don't be afraid.
Perfect.
You're not, but
no, I'm not. It's clearly no. So, well, good. So, thank you, Gabby, for coordinating this. Thank you, Shelley, for interviewing. And Joe, it was a pleasure having you on the call today as a guest. So, with that said, stay safe out there and go Gators.
Go Gators.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.